Hi, my name is Judy Wang. I'm with the Missoula Family Violence Council. We asked MCAT for some time this evening to do a call-in show about domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the Missoula Family Violence Council assembled 3 other people this evening to talk about domestic violence. I'm with the Missoula City Attorney's Office, and I'm a prosecutor, and I prosecute domestic violence cases. Joining me this evening is Patrina Sims. Patrina Sims has been a victim advocate in domestic violence for a long time, and she's also been a survivor of a very horrible relationship, got out of it, and has gone on to help other people who are in difficult domestic violence relationships. Julie Skillicorn works with the Crime Victim Advocate's Office in Missoula County. She helps people obtain orders of protection and helps them demystify the criminal justice system. And we also have Penny Raymond. Penny Raymond is a domestic violence counselor here in Missoula and has worked with batterers groups. October is Domestic Violence Month. We have a horrible amount of domestic violence in western Montana and indeed in all of Montana. And we asked for some time this evening so we could talk to you a little bit about the dynamics of domestic violence, what's going on in a domestic violence relationship, and give you some ideas if you're in a violent relationship, what you can do, or if you know someone who's in a violent relationship, what they can do.
Decided that he was sorry that we could go to counseling, so we went to counseling of his choice, and I decided to go back, and the counselor told me that the best thing for me was to go back to him because he knew what he was doing and that he was the best thing for me. And we were living in Eureka, which is close to Canada, and an incident had happened where finally I went, oh my goodness, it had to do with my children. And he had threatened to beat my children, so I contacted crisis lines and said, maybe I might not need help. I might be able to come back later, but I need help now. So then I was able to come down to Missoula. Even at that time, there are things, all of the situation needed, had something to do with control in our family. They needed to control us, or he needed to control me, to control my family, to control what we cooked, how we ate it, and I thought that because he wore the pants in the family, that's what a relationship is about. Once I came down here, I started seeing things about power and control and the cycle of violence, even though I was obsessive in denying that anything like this was happening in my family. Because I had left so many times, I had to really make new friends and talk to people and started respecting and trusting people to help me to understand what the cycle that I was going through in my relationship was. And for me, I couldn't understand how I was always had to walk on eggshells. That's how it felt. That it didn't matter what I said, I was saying it wrong, or I was doing it wrong, or I wasn't raising my children right. So when I came to Missoula, it was really amazing to me how I didn't have that feeling of eggshells, of breaking the eggs and making eggshells all over and hearing the eggshells, because there was support down here. There were resources that I was able to plug into to find out about domestic violence. And the bottom line is to find out that there was a word for the relationship that I was going into. Didn't surprise me. What surprised me is that I wasn't the only woman that was experiencing the cycle, because what would happen is that he would get to a point where he would be really nice and sweet, and he goes, well, I think maybe you should do this. So I would do that, and then it would build to, well, you're not doing this, and you're doing it wrong, or you didn't use a certain ingredient, or whatever. And it would be screaming, it would be yelling, then it would progress to throwing things at the wall, till ultimately I was the end result. I mean, whatever was at hand would be thrown at me. Whatever was closest, and if it was his fist or, cigarettes or whatever, the end result would be I would be the battering cushion. The point that allowed me to realize that I was in an abusive relationship was that I was not me. I would have gone back continually. I would have stayed there. I would have returned. But it was the threat that my children were going to be spanked. More than spanked, they were going to be, whipped. And that there was nothing I was going to be able to do about it. And if there was black and blue, that's the way it went. So that was the only thing that I reacted to, and I left. And I left after 3 times. It was the final time. So as far as the cycle goes, I had been on an up and down scale. You go through the point where you're in a stage and everything's happy, everything's going fine, and then all of a sudden things don't look like I felt that I wasn't doing them right. So that was like the eggshell point. And then it would progress to the real hardcore hitting and beating. So, to tell you the truth, the bottom line is I would have stayed there. But it was my children that allowed me to help me to get out of there, and along with talking to a crime victim advocate, which Julie, your office really helped me at the time that I needed help. And then from the crime victims advocate, it was the Battered Women's Shelter, the crime victim advocate's office, and then being able to progress to go to the prosecution attorney's office, which at that point in time I was very, very pathetic. I mean, I couldn't look, I couldn't make eye contact, I couldn't talk very loud or speak when I was spoken to, because I felt that anything I would do or say was going to get me a slap. And once I was, Judy Wang had prosecuted a violation of a TRO for me, and I was just totally overwhelmed because I could not believe that this little petite woman over here was standing up for what, I found out were my rights, and that I didn't deserve to be hit. And pretty much that made me realize that I wasn't the only one that was going through abusive relationships. There was other people, and that I, as a survivor, victim, can learn more about domestic violence and speak out against it, which I pretty much have done.
And I think you've just done a really, really good job of sharing your story. Thanks a lot for sharing that with us.
Whew.
Julie, based on your work with victims, are there some dynamics or cycles that are similar to what Patrina went through that most victims of domestic violence experience?
Often, what we see is, and when people come to us, is there has been an acute incident where he's either hurt a pet, beat her severely, or has possibly broken doors or windows. So there's an acute incident that happens. And then after that incident happens, they go into a phase of a honeymoon where he's sending flowers, he's sorry, he's doing all this apologizing, and she's feeling pretty comfortable. She believes him because she loves him. She wants to know that everything is going to be okay. And then you kind of slide into where this stuff is kind of forgotten for a while, kind of get, a little apathetic about things. And then all of a sudden tension starts building. And once the tension starts building, often the victim knows that something's coming and it's going to happen. The tempers start flying. The communication is gone, and the victim knows. And then it swings right back into that attention or into that incident and that acute thing that happened. Often this cycle becomes more severe as time goes on. The beatings become more severe, the incident becomes more severe, and also they become shorter in cycle. So what used to be a month to go through the cycle could now take a week, or what used to be a year is now a month. And so that's an indicator as to where you're at in that relationship.
One of the things we've been talking about is violence, but we've been talking about some other dynamics too. Is domestic violence only violence, or is there more to it than violence? We certainly are concerned about violence, but is it more complicated than that?
There's emotional abuse, where the perpetrator can often withhold feelings and emotion, shut his victim off, show no love, no anything. Also, often emotional abuse can take on a tone where he's never hit her, but that threat of that is there. He may threaten to kill her pets, threaten to kill her, or to break all her personal favorite belongings. If you don't do what I say, if you don't act in a certain way, if you don't wear the clothes that I want you to wear, he threatens to do all these other things and does it in a mean, intimidating way where he stands over there pointing at her, or often he's just,
Let me take a call.
okay.
Hi, this is Judy Wang. We're on MCAT Live. Can I help you? I'm sorry.
Okay. And there's also sexual abuse. Often women in relationships don't believe that they can be raped by their spouse. Should we go again?
Hi, this is Judy Wang. I'm trying to take your call and I'm not having much luck. Can I help you? Well, my clerical skills have once again shown themselves to be outstanding. Hi, this is Judy Wang. Can I help you?
I guess we're screening the calls.
Okay. Okay.
Often sexual abuse can take on a tone of some perpetrators would like their partners to dress more provocatively because they like that, or they think that their partner's dressing too provocatively, so they choose what she wears. I think that's all I can think of right off the top of my head.
What if somebody who's listening is in a violent relationship? What kind of resources do we have in Missoula that can help someone that's in a violent relationship?
Well, they can come to the Crime Victim Advocate Office, which is what I am. I'm a crime victim advocate. In our office, we do crisis counseling. We get them hooked up with other resources in the community, such as food stamps, legal help, and we also get them hooked up with the YWCA, who has a hotline, a shelter. They have support groups for women. But we also do safety planning with them, and we do orders of protection, temporary orders of protection, TOPs, if I refer back to them, that's what they're called, wherein we can help a woman gain an order of protection by going to a judge and saying, I need you to tell this guy to stay away from me. We can do that and protect her in many ways by keeping him 1,500 feet away from her. We can stop all contact by telephone, writing, third person, email, any kind of contact like that. We can protect her in the fact that if he's threatening to kick her out of the home, we can make sure that she's safe in her home. We can also make sure that she has an automobile that she can drive her children around and get them to school and things like that. We accompany the victims to court so they're not alone. And our office also provides a pro bono attorney that comes in for free and helps women who are victims of domestic and sexual assault to get through that process without being fearful of their perpetrator.
Do you have a phone number that people can call if they need more information about your services?
The Crime Victim Advocate phone number is 523-4630. We are open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We take walk-ins from 9 till noon and 1:30 to 4. And so you're welcome to walk in, call for an appointment. We can do crisis counseling over the phone. We can talk to you one-on-one. We can help you make the decision. It may not be appropriate for an order of protection at that time. It may not be the safest thing. An order of protection is not an iron coat. Perpetrators can still violate them, so we do safety planning on top of that.
Katrina, can you tell us a little bit about some of the shelter services or the YWCA services in addition to the services that Julie has just told us about in the CVA office?
I was an advocate for 6 or 7 years, and I think I've gotten out of it, and I can only talk about the things that existed then. And I know that in the shelter, they had advocates and also staff that would be able, that were very much in the know on the resources that were available and still are in Missoula. And basically, it's a family that is running away. The shelter is for families or women who have run away with or without kids, and basically they don't have anything. They come with the clothes on their backs, or maybe they would even bring just what the kids had. So the advocates and staff help them plug into ways to be able to get financially on their feet. I'm not saying stable, because mainly that would mean, I guess it's TANF now. It used to be AFDC. But getting medical help, dental, which is still a problem now, but medical, food stamps, it's basically food, clothing, and shelter, and resources to help as far as counseling even for children. They have a crisis line that they could talk, that people could call in, and they would have a advocate be able to talk to them and have them help them in regards to resources outside and inside Montana State. So that really helped as far as me, encouraging me and giving me support so that I'd be able to get on my feet. The YWCA had programs for Julie, you know, I mean, they had a Secret Second store that would help the women who didn't have any clothes, that could go there and be able to afford some kind of clothes to help them out. They would also have people that would help them as far as getting their children in school or getting, you know, the services that they would need. And a lot of the advocates are familiar, and staff are familiar with the different domestic violence programs that are there, resources to help the women. And like I said, Julie Skilcorn is very up on what is offered for women. And I've had the experience to work with Penny Raymond too, but not in the aspect of what you're involved in today. So
Before the last 6 or 7 years.
Why don't we talk about the criminal justice system now? There's a number of resources available for victims, and I think before we leave the shelter, the YWCA does have a crisis line.
oh yes, it is.
And it's a 24-hour staffed crisis line, and it's 542-1944.
Correct.
You can call that 24 hours a day, and either a YWCA staffer or a trained advocate can answer your call and assist you and give you information, crisis counseling, and point you in the right direction for help, or just listen. A lot of people don't know that assaults within the family member assaults, partner assaults are what we call them in Montana, are criminal. A lot of people still think that if you thump on a family member, it's just a family issue or a family item, and it's not. In Montana, it's a crime. And there's a number of crimes that you can commit on family members, but probably the most common crime that we see prosecuted is a misdemeanor level offense, or a third offense can be a felony, partner or family member assault. And we've talked a lot about dynamics of domestic violence that aren't always criminal. There's some of the coercion and control or demanding that somebody dress in a certain way that isn't going to be something to be criminally chargeable. But when a partner or family member hurts another partner or family member, causes them pain, causes them bodily injury, or makes them feel like they're just about to be hurt, with lawyers, we can never explain things simply. We always have to use a convoluted explanation. We call that a reasonable apprehension of bodily injury. If you cause bodily injury to a partner or family member, or scare the willies out of them, make them feel like they're just about to be hurt, that is a criminal offense. And if that's happening to you, you can call 911, have peace officers come and investigate, and if they determine that there's probable cause to believe an offense has been committed and that an offender who's assaulted you should be arrested, they can and will go ahead and make an arrest. One of the things about the criminal justice system that I think most people still don't understand is when there's a criminal charge filed, it's the state of Montana that files a charge against an offender. And a lot of people ask a victim of a crime, well, do you want to press charges? We wouldn't go ask a bank robber. If Patrina was working in a bank and somebody put a gun to her and said, I need all your money, I doubt a peace officer would come and say, well, Ms. Sims, would you like that bank robber arrested or not? It just seems silly because it's so obvious a crime has been committed. And I think we need to make that societal shift that domestic violence is also a crime. And with any criminal charge, it's the state of Montana that's filed charges against an offender. And a victim and a witness is a very important piece of the case, but they're not pressing charges, and it's not their case to drop or charge or follow through on. They're simply an important piece of the case or an important part of the case, and they're certainly personally involved in the case, but it's not their case to charge or not charge. Penny, we need to talk to you about some of what happens after an offender if they either plead guilty or ultimately are convicted of a charge of domestic violence. What is involved with batterers counseling, and what are you trying to do in batterers counseling?
I don't know. Batterers programs, at least here in Missoula, and I presume pretty much through Montana, are predominantly filled with court-mandated folks, which means that they've gone through the system that you've just described, and part of what they need to do is 25 hours or more of domestic violence counseling. And the goal of that, well, there's a number of goals, but primarily the goal is to create safety in the home. That the reasoning behind the counseling is that every member of the family, of any place, has a right to be safe in their own home. And so that's the umbrella goal, is to work with someone to understand that they deserve safety and the people in their family deserve safety likewise.
How do you do that?
It's tricky. It's tricky. And actually, there's a lot of current activity around that question right now, that when we look back on statistics over the last 30 years where this has, or less, 25 to 30 years, where this has really been an effort, we're not seeing a lot of success. So we're in a time now where the research is really looking at what's making it successful for some and what's not. And so it's under a change right now. And traditionally, there's been a lot of confrontive approaches similar to chemical dependency treatment. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Judy Wang. Gone again? Sorry.
It's okay. Which is also changing. The treatment procedures there are changing too, but they had a real confrontive demeanor to them, where they were trying to kind of break the spirit, sort of an approach. And what's been found over the years that break your spirit approach has actually endangered victims further and kids further. That a lot of offenders, realizing they're still in the arms of the system while they're getting treatment, so they're being mandated, the court has some kind of a say over what they're doing, they're kind of watching them still. They behave well in group, but through the course of being intimidated or challenged and being embarrassed about it, they don't react in group, they go home and inflict further injury on victims.
Let me see if I can
Okay.
fail to lose this color. Hi, this is Judy Wang. They're gone again. Okay.
So I'll keep going. So part of the differences that are occurring is adapting to how it is people change. So really examining what are the steps that anybody does when they are engaged in a change, personal change of any kind, quitting smoking, dieting, quitting drinking, quitting actively aggressive behavior, or even less dramatic aggressive behavior. When people decide to quit, what's that process like? And there are certain interventions at different stages of change. Most of the change is in deciding to change. And we found that most batterers enter treatment at the place where I've got nothing to change. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done before we do active work, which is more of the confront of the behavioral change, the change of thinking. That goes with when someone has actually chosen to change already. There's all this preliminary work that needs to be done. So the strategies are changing.
Hi, is there a caller there?
And I was just,
Hi, caller.
If my mom and dad are fighting, how can I make them stop?
Wow, that is a really, really, really good question. One of the things, at least I find with domestic violence, is sometimes we've got really good, simple questions, and sometimes the answers, grown-ups are like that, sometimes the answers aren't as good and simple as the question is. If your parents are fighting, one thing I'm real worried about is you. And the thing I'd like you to do first is take care of yourself and make sure you're in a safe place. What other things do you think we should tell this young person?
I think they need to go to a safe place, but they also need to talk to their one of their parents to find out what that is. They need to make a safety plan that if the parents are fighting, that they have a safe place to go, but a plan such as going to a neighbor's house or something like that, so mom will know or dad will know where the child is at the time. Also, a child needs to be needs to be aware that they can't make them stop. It's not their job to make them stop, and it's not their job to fix it. And so they just need to take care of themselves and make it safe. If they're okay with it and they're at a place where they can call 911, that may be an option as well.
But also, mom and dad might be fighting, yet the child might still have a very good relationship with either or both of them. And maybe after the parents calm down, the child can go and say, I didn't like what you did. I mean, because many times children are at a point where they're upset because their mom and dad are fighting, yet they're able later to be able to talk to either one of them or both. So that's
Another
option
thing
too.
they can do is go to their school counselor or go to their teacher or talk to an adult that they trust, such as an aunt, a grandma, maybe the neighbor, maybe their best friend's mom. Go to an adult that they trust, that they can talk to an adult,
Right.
tell them what's going on, and maybe that adult can help.
One of the things I think all of us have learned about domestic violence is everyone is 100% responsible for their own behavior. A child doesn't make a parent
Right.
be violent or doesn't have the ability to make them stop being violent. Each one of us makes choices, and all of us make mistakes. None of us are perfect, to be sure, but each one of us is responsible for our own choices, and kids can't make parents stop or start doing something, and they need to take care of themselves. And like Julie said, reach out for help, tell people you trust, and talk about it so that you're not feeling like it's your fault.
And maybe we can add, for the parents of the children in these situations, that a lot of moms and dads don't think that the child is aware of the violence that's going on. Often they think that they're asleep up in their beds all snug and tucked away, when often that's not the case at all. They can hear what's going on, they know what's going on, and it's affecting them, and it affects them throughout all the stages of their life. And no matter what age they are, it affects the child.
What kind of impact does domestic violence have on kids that see it or hear it?
Well, often you see them acting out at school. Their grades may drop. They become violent themselves. With smaller children, they may revert back to, if they've been potty trained, they may revert back to wetting. If they've been weaned off the bottle, they may revert back to wanting the bottle. There's many, many effects, and it could take an entire hour to go over just those effects. And all these things are available, all these resources are available at the YWCA or at the Crime Victim Advocate Office, that we can send these out to anybody to see what the effects are. But one thing you always need to remember is it does affect the children.
Okay. Penny, when you were talking about counseling, I think I kept hearing you say process and change. So domestic violence isn't something that has like an on-off switch where you can make sure that you get people turned on to the off switch?
That was the hope. That was the hope, that there was just a switch. There is no switch. I heard myself challenging that right now, what I just said in my brain. Actually, there is a switch, but getting to that switch and making that switch successful is a long process. There is a point in anyone's life when we create any kind of changes in our life where we make up our mind without a doubt that that's what we're going to do. That's the switch. So there is a switch. But getting to that switch and maintaining that switch is a process.
One of the things that I don't think we've talked about, I bet all of us, I know all of us have had domestic violence impact our lives in a whole lot of different ways, but I bet all of us know someone that's in a violent relationship. What can we tell people about what they can do if they're not the person in the violent relationship, but they know somebody in a violent relationship?
I think, first of all, one of the main and most important things is to listen.
Right.
Listen to that person, listen to their experiences, listen to what they're telling you. It may be very difficult for them to open up, and they don't need you shrugging it off. They don't need you to be telling them what to do. You need to listen, actively listen to what they're telling you. Second is maybe it's a good opportunity for you to go collect resources within your community. Go down to the YWCA and get their pamphlets. Come to the Crime Victim Advocate Office and find out procedures for an order of protection. Maybe present that information to your friend in a nice, safe manner where she's in a safe place and you can help her that way. Talk to her about safety. Make sure that the doors have nice, good locks, secure locks, the windows lock. Make sure that she has outside lighting if her perpetrator's away, so she has all these safety things. Safety plan in case she gets to the point where she's ready to leave the abusive situation. Maybe it would be wise for her to have a bag packed with a change of clothes for her and for her children if she need to, a stash of money, even $20 if that's all she can afford to put in that bag, but you know, some money so if she goes out she has money so she can eat and provide. Make sure that she has, you know, birth certificates and those things that she's going to need to maybe get some resources available in that bag. It might not be wise for her to keep that bag in the home, but to maybe keep it at a safe place, keep it at her friend's house, keep it, you know, somewhere where she can go and get it very well. It's often wise to, you know, think ahead and have a checking account open in your name, and so your money can go into that account. So he doesn't have access to that money, and so he can't take it from you when he's thinking that you're preparing to leave.
Julie, I don't hear you saying I should give them advice of what they should do. I hear you saying you have some suggestions for them. Why isn't that somebody that knows somebody in a violent relationship shouldn't just say, get out?
Well, for one thing, when a woman leaves an abusive situation, it is the most dangerous time for her.
Boy, that seems counterintuitive.
He's often angry, and that may put him over the edge where he's actually going to do some major violence. It's often when women have left, that's when they're murdered by their spouse. And so it's a very, very important time for them, and they need to be prepared. Often they need to also be in the place where they're ready to go. They say nationally, on the average, it takes up to 7 times for a woman to leave a perpetrator before she actually leaves for good. She needs to be in a place where she can go.
I was just going to add, as you were talking, that a lot of times our image of a domestic violence relationship is a woman being extremely dependent on her partner, or the victim, man or woman, being extremely dependent on their partner. And in actuality, they're both extremely dependent on each other. So that, just imagine that dynamic trying to come apart. And if the violent person in the relationship is losing something their life is depending on, it's not choosing to leave, it's that one is choosing to leave them. Clinging with all their might is what is a common reaction, common reaction, to the point where no one else is going to have her or him, as the case may be, and killing them.
Mm-hmm.
It's common at that point, not
When-
common. Reaction is common at that point.
One issue I've heard raised a lot of times is people say, well, if it was really that bad, wouldn't you just leave? But Trina, you certainly put up with an awful lot for an awfully long time, and you told us this evening that you might still be there if it wasn't for your kids. Why would a woman or a man stay in a violent, abusive relationship and not just leave?
like I said earlier, there are many reasons why, and each person, it's not just economic, it's not culture, it's, you know, a lot of times, bottom line is children and economics. And life skills, experience, job skills. Do they have any job skills? If they've gotten married, gone into a situation in a relationship where they've gone straight from high school or straight from the parents' house into their prospective partner's home, there are no there are no job skills that they have been able to learn. So they have that falling fear of not being able to get a job and not being able to take care of their kids alone by themselves. And that's a very big fear, not being able to pay the rent. It's the very basics is economics, and also when the children are saying, I miss daddy, you know, where's daddy? How come we can't see daddy? Or how come we can only see daddy on the weekends? And I can only speak for the aspect of as a father, as an ex-husband, you know, but I'm not saying by any means that domestic abuse only affects women, because it's clear across. You know, women are known to be abusive too. I'm not saying just straight out. My experience shows, my experience was a man, but I've also learned how that there are healthy relationships that do exist, and I found through the support that I have here in Missoula, you know, that not all partners are abusive.
Can I add something to that? One thing that always comes to my mind, and it's kind of my soapbox, is why do we always ask, why does she
Why
leave?
stay?
Why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't she leave? We need to, as a community, start asking, why does he batter? And focus on that. It's not why does she leave or why doesn't she leave. But, and it brings to mind another couple of common reasons why I hear why they don't leave. Religious reasons.
Very good.
Their minister has said, God has joined you together and man can't put you under. And so they truly believe that somehow they will pay by leaving their spouse and by God. Another thing is, it is kind of a conflict, is that they're going to look at the victim loves their spouse. They married their spouse because they loved him, and there is that love. And often they think that they can help and change and
Right.
make that person better. And if they stay, they can do that. If they leave, they can't do that. And so they're torn between the abuse and the love that they feel for their partner.
What kind of impact do family members usually have on a violent relationship? Are family members always supportive of victims getting out?
Not often. Often the perpetrator was abused, and so his family has lived in that situation, you know, and the family before them, and it can be generational. So they believe that that is just what happens. That is the way it is. Bystanders can do a lot within their, what I like to call micro communities, and a family community is a micro community. And if there's somebody that is battering in your family, and the family members know about it, family members need to go up to them and say, this is not okay. It's not okay to abuse your partner. It's not okay to abuse your kids. But the bystanders and the people within that micro community need to stand up, and they need to say, it's not okay. There are many examples of micro communities. It could be your workplace. You know, you may know that somebody within your workplace is battering their partner. These people need to go to the batterer and say, this is not okay. We need to make it a community. We need to make a social change. Talk about process and change. We need to talk about the batter. We need to make the batterer accountable for his actions. And in making the batterer accountable, we'll be keeping the victim safe. Then we won't be asking, why doesn't she leave?
No kind of oppression that, as I understand it, there's no kind of oppression that can stop until the oppressor decides to change their behaviors or is motivated for any number of reasons to change. It's not the task of the person being oppressed to bring about the change. There's always ways to subvert that, you know.
But we always hear about domestic violence being someone out of control. But is it really using power to control rather than someone being out of control?
That's a good question. That one's slightly under debate too. That it seems like the most active dynamic is one of control. The play is that it's usually played when someone is feeling powerless, and that's a perception. So it may not be seen by any of us looking in on it. But the way to feel powerful again is to control those things around you. And you do what you need to do to be able to control it. So there's a dynamic that needs to get undone. There's times when we are powerless. There's times we're not powerful when it comes to making other people change, really. All we can do is make them afraid of us, or love us, respect us, or disrespect us. Those are the kind of changes. We can't really change their behavior. We can't really get what we want. So also, part of the dynamic in relationships is, I want this person to care about me. I want to be happy. I feel unlovable, so that person's going to leave me, so I'm going to do anything I can to make them stay. I mean, that's a very simplified version, but there's needy dynamics involved in that. And the help has to be or they need to be assisted through that need. That's not accepting behaviors. That's just accepting them as human beings with particular needs, like we all have. So control is a dynamic to put that powerlessness away, hide it.
Are there other things we can tell people in our community of Missoula that they can do if they're concerned about this problem, how they can be involved? I know the Family Violence Council has an open policy, and we're always looking for new members and new energy because we're always trying to do too many things with too few people who are always too tired. The Missoula Family Violence Council meets the first Wednesday of every month at noon in the City Council Chambers meeting room, and anyone who has a perspective or concern or interest in domestic violence is welcome to join us, try us on for a fit, and see if it's a group that they would like to join. I know you have training going on, Julie. What kinds of volunteer work can people do for either the YWCA or the Crime Victim Advocate's Office?
The YWCA and the CVA office coordinate a 40 to 45 hour training twice a year. We are going through that right now, but feel free to call us if you're interested in that, and we can get you on a list for spring training. But the YWCA needs to man their 24-hour hotline, and that takes a lot of work and a lot of volunteers. And so they have people 24 hours you can call in if you're in the middle, if it's the middle of the night and you need to talk to somebody, and volunteers man that hotline. There are also advocates that are in the shelter that are there all the time that can talk to you. The CVA office, we're only open from 8 to 5, but we have volunteers in that office as well. We often have 3 to 4 to 5 people come walk in at the same time, and so we often need extra help.
Should I wait? Hi, this is... Gone. What you mentioned that there's a lot of training that somebody goes through to become a victim advocate. What kind of things are covered in 40-some hours of training?
Yeah, it's 40 to 45 hours. We talk about the dynamics of domestic violence and sexual assault. I always want to pair those two together because we all work with survivors of sexual assault as well as domestic violence. But we teach them crisis counseling, active listening. We bring people in from the community that do this, prosecutors and batters treatment program workers. We bring in the counselors and whatnot that can teach us how to do that. And we do a lot of role playing, so when they get on the phone, they're very aware of how to talk to somebody, or not talk, but to listen to somebody.
Okay. Are there other things as a society, are there any societal things that help support domestic violence? Are any of the isms related to domestic violence, sexism or racism or any of the, let's take a call. Okay. Every time. Are any of the isms related to domestic violence?
Most isms that I know of that are coming to my mind right now are related to power and control. Who has power, who does not have power? So oppressive systems. So ideally, each of us looking at where we oppress and where we're being oppressed is only going to help any of those isms, sexism, racism, what other isms?
How is sexism connected to domestic violence? Is there a connection?
It seems, even though it appears to be on the way out, that gender roles lead into power and control.
Gender in which way?
That's what I've been doing.
Gender roles. So, as a person, it's based
Hi.
on unequal relationships.
Is there a caller on the line?
Yes, there is.
Hi, caller.
Okay, I'm going to say that my name is Holly.
Hi, Holly.
And I wanted to just call and say how thankful and appreciative I am. I just wanted you and the public to know. I know Penny and Katrina and you, Judy, Kelly, Dodie, and Deb. I worked for the YWCA for 2 years after a domestic violence situation, and it's been 5 years since September 30th for me. And you guys all really taught me the process to change and provided me healthy information to change that codependency. And I just wanted to call and tell you how thankful I was for your support and how proud I am to see all of you still helping and being supportive for this cause. And that's about all I have to say.
Well, Holly, I think I can probably speak for, every once in a while, we all have the same thoughts in our mind, and you just made our day, so thank you very, very much for calling. That's a really sweet call. Any questions or anything we can talk about, or anything that you think we need to cover?
Actually, I have a daughter that is now 20, and I find that she is in a sort of codependent relationship. I suppose after watching and experiencing her mom going through that, I'm trying to be real supportive and provide her information to where she can maybe get out of that situation, but she's pretty much in denial. And my question is, what ideas or suggestions that you might have that I could share with her as far as the situation and the relationship she's in?
I've got a couple ideas, Holly, and then I'll let everybody else speak as well, because I'm sure they've got better ideas than I do. I think anytime we have somebody somebody we know and care about in a relationship that causes us a lot of concern, there's a real balancing, because I think it's a mistake to give advice and tell people what to do. A, they probably won't follow it anyway, and B, they need to make decisions on their own. At the same time, I think it's real important that we do reality checking. If we see something and it doesn't look right, or it looks abusive, or it looks abnormal, I think we're not giving advice if we say, boy, I don't think him hitting you is appropriate, or I don't think him calling you that horrible name is appropriate. That's not part of a healthy relationship. That's not giving him advice to tell him to dump the jerk or whatever. It's just saying, boy, this is a reality check. I don't think what's going on is healthy or good for you, or I don't think that somebody who cares about you would act in that way.
Mm-hmm. And when you do say that, then what's the next step?
To me, that's part of the real trouble, because we can't take the next step of saying you've got to get out or you've got to do this. What we can do is love and listen and do reality checking and be there and maybe do safety planning. And I think one of the things I think is real important for all of us to say is, from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, I'm really concerned about your safety.
Right.
This is progressing in a way that's really frightening for me, but if we can keep it in I think, I feel, I see, rather than you should, you must, you better, you should, you must, you better isn't probably going to work anyway, and it isn't very helpful. But reality checking, I think if all of us, if our whole society starts doing some really good reality checking and saying, you know, this violence is not okay, then if everybody hears that and everybody says that, I think things will start to change. Maybe not this particular person, this particular minute, but maybe our society will change.
And it's really important, Holly, for your daughter to know that you're going to be there. So when we give advice, we're alienating them really, unless they're asking for the advice. So giving those reality checks like Judy described and really letting her know you're going to be there, that's the gift to her. And when she's ready, she's going to come to you and you'll be off. You'll be going.
Right. Well, I have expressed my fear of the same thing happening to her, and she totally hated what had happened and is totally against that sort of behavior. And she's falling into that same cycle, whether she knows it or not. And I don't tell her, you know, I don't want you to do this. You know, I feel this is totally wrong. You know, I see what's happening. I just tell her how scared I am and how I see the same thing happening, and I'm just really scared for her, and I will be there for her if she needs anything. But as a parent, I suppose, since she's over 18, that's about all I can do, is just to be there for her.
It's not only, that is such a gift, Holly. That's a whole bunch that you're giving her. And boy, I can sure appreciate how hard it is to just accept the fact that your daughter's where she is, and you gotta let go and still hang in there and love her at the same time. What a hard balancing act that
That is really
is.
scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like you're doing a really good job of it, though, Holly, and that, to me, is the toughest thing. And I have seen some families that give advice, and then when their advice isn't instantly followed, get mad and cut someone off. And I think that's the worst thing you can do. And then the other reality check, I guess I'm not sure how much violence is involved with your daughter, and that really isn't that necessary for the discussion, but we all say, why doesn't she leave? But as Julie pointed out earlier, sometimes that's very, very dangerous advice. We're telling somebody to put themselves in much greater danger than they are right now. And that's a choice that they need to make if they feel comfortable making it, when they feel comfortable making it. It's not something that's appropriate as an advice kind of thing. It sounds to me like you're doing a great job.
But as far as the codependency, being codependent on him, thinking that there's nobody else, and being stuck in that situation, what would you say to her?
I think there's some affirming things you can say, that you care about her, there's other people who care about her, there will be other people who care about her, and this relationship is not the end. And I think we're just about done.
Another thing you can do is find resources, codependent resources, and leave them around. So it's not you giving them to her.
Right.
She can find them.
Okay.
They're available for her to find them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
And thank you very much, MCAT, for giving Missoula Family Violence Council this opportunity. Let's wrap up with just a couple other things. Can we think of any other societal things that we can suggest to people that they can do to make our community of Missoula, a safer place?
I
One,
would say talking about it, making it not a secret, getting involved in discussions with people, finding out all you can learn about it, being as objective as you can while you're learning about it, and really seeking on the inside of yourself how we're contributing to this force that's rolling here.
if you see a violent relationship, call 911.
Thank you very much, MCAT. We appreciate you sharing your time with us.